Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good
Welcome to the
morning.
Partnership at Drug Free New Hampshire's Facebook Live. I'm really excited this morning to be here. It is February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness and Prevention Month. And so today we are fortunate to have our two guests from Haven to join us and be able to talk to us a little bit about all issues related to, well, not all, right? Because we only have a few minutes, but we're excited to have Michelle Ryan and Lauren Camp to be talking about the work that Haven does in the prevention world with our young people. So welcome. And with that, I'd love you to introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name's Lauren. Michelle and I are both violence prevention educators at Haven, New Hampshire. Do you want to explain what that does?
Sure. As educators, we visit schools throughout Rockingham and Strafford County. Lauren and I are the middle school and high school team. So we visit with students from 5th grade to 12th grade. We focus on, our topics are boundaries, healthy relationships, consent, and victim blaming. And we, I think, have been fortunate to visit with several thousand students already this year. Our presentations are highly interactive, and we really try to highlight the fact that there are resources available for the students, and we assist them in coming up with strategies to try to prevent violence that they can, walk away with and that are tangible so that they can keep themselves safe and other people safe.
Wow, 1,000 students already this year.
Oh, definitely several thousand.
Several thousand,
we project that by the end of the year, we should probably be at around 10,000 students and staff that we've seen. And Haven specifically serves Rockingham and Strafford County in New Hampshire. So that just is within our catchment zone. That's definitely not all of the students we could be seeing, but that we are slowly and surely making our way to almost 10,000.
Wow. Wow. That is, thank you for the work you do. That is a busy schedule. And so I really appreciate you being with us today. So what is the importance of the work you do and the importance of this, Prevention Awareness Month? Why is this topic so important? Why do you think schools are inviting you in? Why are these such important topics to be addressed?
Totally. Yeah, Michelle and I very much so, and the whole education team here at Haven and Haven as well, care so deeply about children's safety and teen safety. And it's oftentimes a conversation that's not had. And we think that that's as simple as it's starting a conversation. So we go into classrooms and we talk. We range all the way from kindergarten to 12th grade. So we start in kindergarten talking about personal body safety rules for small children, talking about some rules of being like, my body belongs to me. I always have the right to talk to a trusted adult, that kind of stuff. So really teaching students from a young age that they have their own personal autonomy, and no one should ever be able to violate that. And then as we step up and as they get older, we're able to give them more resources and things that are not only happening in school, but students now are seeing things all over the internet. And this is not something that's going away. And they are experiencing it themselves. So when we come in and we are so fortunate to talk to so many students, they love talking back. We are finally someone that they feel like they could have a safe conversation with about this kind of stuff. And our main goal is to give them the language so that if this is coming up in their own lives, they know how to talk about it. As soon as you don't know how to say what's going on to you, it's automatically a huge barrier for you. So when we come in and tell them that anyone who is abusing them, anyone who is treating them poorly or being mean to them, that doesn't have to happen. And that's not a fact of life. So we are so fortunate to be able to do that and to show them and to give them a resource. And at Haven, we have a 24-hour helpline that is staffed by fellow coworkers that we hand out to students. So any time of the day, any day of the year, they have a resource that they can call if something is happening to them, or they just want to talk or something, and they want to talk about what's affecting them. And we give them that resource, and we know that they're calling, and we know they just want to chat. And if we can be the people they feel safe doing that with, that is our biggest accomplishment.
Great. And so there are different types of violence that you address. Can you kind of bring those down into more detail for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
For our listeners.
Yeah, of course. Violence and abuse come in all different shapes and sizes. We know that abuse can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be emotional, and it can be mental. So we cover all of those. We cover such the wide range of it because oftentimes physical abuse is the one that's highlighted the most. And of course, that is so important. But we also give them the signs to look for if they are being manipulated, if they are being pressured, if someone is making them do something they really don't want to do, how they can advocate for themselves and set boundaries with not only dating partners, but with everyone in their life, so that family members, friends are also not crossing the boundaries that they have set. So breaking it down, we know that unfortunately in New Hampshire, we're not getting away from this. Teen dating violence is absolutely a real problem that is coming up. We know that about 7% of all teens in the state of New Hampshire have experienced physical dating violence. And we know that almost around 8% of all teens in New Hampshire have experienced sexual abuse. So it's here, and us not talking about it only will make the problem worse. But we also know that across the United States, about 1 in 3 teens will experience some kind of dating violence, whether that be physical, sexual, emotional, or verbal. So all of these different layers, we want to make sure that we talk about it. So especially as we get to our older students, we talk about not only that consent is necessary, but we talk about how can we see consent? What can consent look like? How is it nuanced? What are no messages? What are yes messages? And we really bring it to their level so that they can put it to their own lives. Because if we're talking about some outside person, they often lose track of it. But if we're like, this is you're talking to your friend, like, how can this come up? They seem to get it a lot more.
We also like to focus on the fact that teen dating violence is avoidable. And, when we take a preventative approach rather than a crisis intervention approach, then we basically are helping the kids avoid adverse childhood experiences. And teen dating violence is most certainly an adverse childhood experience. So instead of having to do oh my gosh, how can we help you after the fact, we try to stress personal accountability and open communication with trusted adults that allow them to recognize those signs before they are put in a position where they have to heal from them.
Absolutely.
Because the impacts can be so great in the short term and the long term.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit more about what we know those short and long-term impacts are?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you want me to take this one?
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So we know that, in the short term, kids are suffering from anxiety and depression. Kids are not wanting to go to school. They may decide to go to school, but then when they're there, they sort of feel like a hot mess, and they're just going through so much stuff that it's difficult for them to focus on their work, or they're acting out. We know that specifically, half of teens in relationships report being controlled. So they are sort of already falling into these patterns where they're not able to honor themselves and see the importance of themselves. So that creates the potential for them to suffer from anxiety and depression long term, and just have a real difficult time being involved in healthy relationships, because we know what we experience, right? So if we can create more positive experiences for them, then hopefully they're not going to suffer from mental health problems and physical problems. And we also know that we have to break this pattern, right? Because if we don't address it now, then the likelihood is that kids that experience abuse in their lives could possibly find themselves in adult relationships where they are either the victim or the perpetrator. And so this is just propelled further. So correct messaging around what they deserve and what is healthy and what is safe, I think is imperative to their well-being, just to make them healthier overall. And then there's less of a demand on our health system, right? And we are definitely lacking resources. So that's super important too.
Thank you. As a parent, I'm a parent of a range of ages in my house, and I hear this a lot. These are really sensitive topics.
Absolutely.
And I know that sometimes we worry about who's talking to our kids about this kind of stuff and, what's happening at school. And I'm just curious what you would have to say to, me and other parents who may be listening about that confidentiality and judgment and, just the things that we worry about when we know that our kids are potentially exposed to, I don't know, interacting with sensitive topics that are hard.
Yep.
And yeah, how do we feel comfortable? How do we help me and other parents feel comfortable with our kids going and talking about really sensitive material?
Of course. And that is a very valid concern. And we hear that really all the time, that these are like what society has told us are scary topics and can be awkward and can be embarrassing. The way that we enter into this kind of work is just starting a conversation. We are not there to dictate anything to them. We are really there to listen to their experiences and tell them how we can move forward with it. And tell them what is right and wrong from an adult perspective and from a proven medical perspective of what can happen. And we also know that 38% of teens say that their parent is the person that they want to talk to about getting this kind of information. And more likely than others, we also know that coming into schools, they are feeling uncomfortable when they see us in the beginning. We know that they tell their friends, they're like, oh, the Haven people are here. And that's okay. We embrace that awkwardness because we want them to know that it's not awkward, that it's not embarrassing to talk about what we need and what we deserve and our general well-being and safety. Haven comes into this place in a very trauma-informed way, where we are never ever trying to upset anyone. We really talk about all topics in a sensitive way that will never blame a victim, that will never single anyone out. We want them to be able to take something away from this experience. And so we get the teachers and we get the parents saying that a stranger coming into their classroom can be uncomfortable, but we are there with the best intentions to maintain. We are all on the same team. That's what we always say. All the teachers and the parents and educators, we're on the same team. We all want the safety and well-being of the children and our students. And oftentimes when we come in, students feel like they can report things to us that they can't to other people because they're nervous and embarrassed to talk to family members and to talk to friends. So us coming in can give them an outlet to talk about that kind of stuff that maybe a parent can't, or maybe they're not ready. But we also reassure them that parents also think it's awkward, but parents, the number one priority is safety. So our number one thing is that you should have a trusted adult that you're able to talk to, and having a trusted adult, at least one, can really change the outlook on a student's life. If they feel like they have an adult they can talk to at home about these conversations, who will not shut them down, who will believe them, who will help them in times of need, that can create a whole wide change in their outlook on the situation. Just giving them someone who they can trust, get it off their chest, because we all know teenagers, they're definitely trying to keep it in. They don't want to talk to mom and dad about this kind of stuff. So we hope to bring just ourselves so they can talk, but also reassure them that they have the right to talk to people if they need help.
I would say too, because I'm a parent as well, our messaging is that if your child comes to you, like they're already self-conscious and they already think that, well, maybe I don't want to bother mom and dad or, you know, my trusted adult at home because they're busy. Maybe they won't think it's a big deal. Maybe they, like the kids are sensitive, like I don't want to upset my parent. Kids are also afraid that they might lose privileges, right? Especially for the online portion of this stuff. And so what we need to do as parents and as adult role models for them is we need to validate their experience. We need to believe them. We need to tell them that if this is happening to them, that they don't deserve it. We need to tell them that it's not their fault. And all of those messages need to create a safe space so you can have that dialogue, because if they're already thinking that you're judging them or you're blaming them, then they're less likely to talk to you about what's going on. And I think because of social media, we have to be realistic that the more honest we are with our kids, the better, because if we're not honest, they're going to bust us and they're going to find out that we are not being forthcoming with all of what we know. We really can't hide it from them. We can't shield it. They will find it on their own. So the more trust there are in those relationships, the better. And when that validation comes from them, then they know that if they are in an unsafe situation, that it's okay to talk to a grown-up that they trust, because that fear of being judged has been taken away.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, you know, if I know sometimes a reason that parents may not be so open to conversations is because they don't feel that they know, or they know how to have these to talk and be open. Do you have any recommendations for places, for resources for parents who might want to look into informing themselves a little bit about this? Or let's say, you know, I don't know, I don't think this is happening in my kids' school, but I just heard these statistics and I realize this is really important. How do I start, you know, how do I talk to my kids about this?
Yeah. I absolutely applaud any parent or guardian who is taking the steps to learn more about it. I think children are very realistic and they know that you're not going to have all the answers, but like being prepared obviously is like a great step forward. Haven ourselves, we will do parent trainings, especially if we come to a school. We will talk to parents about the kind of language we use so that everyone's on the same page about what we're talking about. Another really great resource that we love as an organization is One Love, which was an organization created by a mom who had lost her child to domestic abuse. So that kind of resources really lay out like how to look at signs and warnings, and also just like how to have an honest conversation with your child, because of course you want to protect them, and sometimes parents will just shield their ears because they don't want to hear the embarrassing things either. But if you can put your child at ease even a little, it's really helpful. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, I like very well mind, but again, that we didn't expect that you were going to be asking for resources for grownups, but I like that because I feel like I lean into that, because once you have a better grasp on the reality of what's happening, then you're more prepared for what they're going to say to you and how to respond to it. I think that the greatest piece of advice is just to listen and to try your hardest not to judge. It can be super emotional because I think that what we see too is that nobody came in and talked to me about this. You know, I'm a Gen Xer. And so we come across a lot of grownups that are realizing that, oh gosh, this actually happened to me and I didn't even know that. So when parents sort of seek out resources as a way to help their children, they're taking steps in their own healing, and they're like sort of being able to acknowledge like, wow, no one ever said this to me. Is this stuff true? And then once you sort of start looking at that closer, I think that you develop more empathy towards your child. And for me, I sort of wish that there was more empathy directed towards, people that grew up in my generation. It wasn't really talked about the way that we talk about it now. So for me, it's kind of full circle moment. It's very, very powerful. And I think about the pain that grownups have suffered because no one talked to them about preventing violence. And now, if we do this, we literally are making such a huge difference, because it is people that are violent towards other people. It's people that sexually harass other people. So we have the power. And so if we just teach parents and students that if they can harness that power, we're a safer world, it's amazing. And when the light clicks, it's just, I don't know, there's just, there's more connections being made. And then you have administrators talking to students, talking to parents, and we just really, really emphasize that you have a team of grownups that stand behind you. Don't be afraid to talk to us. And also, as grownups, we need to be able to say the things that make us uncomfortable. Don't dance around it, just say it. I think they like that because it shows them that you respect them and you're not I don't know, you're just not being condescending to them. They know a lot more than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
And we also know that being an adult comes with a lot of unlearning, like Michelle said. So our helpline is not only for students, it is for people of any ages, of any genders, of any time. We oftentimes have parents or guardians calling in and saying, my child told me this. I don't know what to do. And we have trained advocates on the phones 24/7, 365 days a year who can be like, okay, let's walk through it. Because we know that every case is individualized to the people involved. So just as much as kids have the right to talk to someone, so do adults. And we know that that is just as important in looking for someone who can just kind of give you a little guiding push in the right direction. If you're like, I don't know how to phrase it. I don't know. I have my own thought processes about this, but I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. That phone number is for everyone. To just talk it out.
And also for people who aren't just worried about their family members, but who are experiencing adults who are experiencing violence themselves. Okay.
Yes, because Haven not only does education, we help survivors. We help them in a whole bunch of different ways. We offer housing. We help support groups. We are oftentimes going to court and hospitals with people. So we do it all. In our very small and mighty little team, we try to help as many people as we can with what we have, because every single person deserves help. If we had the money, we would help everyone in the world. But right now, Rockingham and Strafford County are our number ones. And so that's for anyone who need it.
But there are organizations like Haven throughout the state, correct?
Yes.
That are part of the New Hampshire Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence. So I think Nikki will put that link in the chat as well, because if you're not in the Haven catchment area, there is likely an organization near you that is doing similar work in education, perhaps in schools. And if not, if you don't think this is happening in your schools and you think it would be a good idea, I'm sure there's ways to advocate for that in your communities.
Yes.
And then also those resources that we mentioned that you could empower yourself to try to have these conversations with your kids. Two things I was just thinking of that you were saying, when we talk about, we've seen an increase in, I was just on a meeting with some educators and, just the level of aggression and violence in general in schools as a result likely of the pandemic has increased. And, it sounds like while, we're here for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month and Haven is around, more sexual and dating violence, that these conversations, this ability to advocate for yourself in any relationship and be an upstander and not a bystander, it's not just around dating and intimate partner, but that this education and these skills are life skills, and that impact a full school culture. and home culture, right, of
Absolutely.
mutual respect. And so I think that that's a wonderful school-wide, impact.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that we do, and we are very because we work with small classroom settings, so we'll never have more than 30 students in a room, so we can actually have conversation and talk about it. And oftentimes at the end and throughout all of our programming, we're asking, what do you think you could do? This is happening. What are some steps that you could take to help yourself, to help others? And these situations are not just about teen dating violence. They're about sexual harassment. They're about bullying. They're about you're seeing someone violate someone else. How can you help? In what way? And we give them those tools of you have the right to talk to a trusted adult. If you feel safe enough to stand up to someone, stand up to them. Because not only are you helping the person who is being attacked or verbally or physically, you're also helping the entire community. And we are big believers that small actions lead to big things. So the small things that we can do to stop violence at even the smallest levels, we know lower the numbers of violence when it comes to more aggressive forms of violence.
Oh, great. Yeah. And then I think the other thing that I wanted to follow up on is just what you were saying, Michelle, about adults, who haven't had the opportunity to work through this, and their kids may be more, I mean, I see this all the time. My third grader comes home with social emotional language that, is not my go-to language, and I'm growing with her. Right. And if you have a child who's coming home with this awareness of, healthy relationships, and you may not have that awareness, and that being open and being willing to say, yeah, I wasn't raised I have growing to do too. And there's no shame in that, right? No. We don't have to be perfect the way we can always be on this journey of being more self-aware and growing as a person who can, be in healthier relationships.
Absolutely.
I love that you brought that up, because a lot of our messaging is centering around, so now you have more knowledge than a lot of grownups. So we invite you to be our allies. And so we try to set them up to feel empowered, to have conversations, to lead conversations. And, with our Healthy Relationships workshop, we don't focus, there's no negativity in that. It's all about how do you have healthy relationships with all of the people. So rather than telling them what not to do, we tell them what to do. So then they can spread the message, and they can start identifying what's happening in their own lives. And it's really cool. And, they teach us too. So there is this opportunity to just create longer lasting, strengthening partnerships between grownups and kids that develop more empathetic responses to pain and to crisis. Because we tell them sometimes when you're victimized and then you reach out for help and you're re-victimized, that's more painful than the assault that you experienced or the violence that you experienced. So let's make sure that our messaging is positive. Let's accept that people do make mistakes, but also do our best to correct them if we have that knowledge. So yeah, it's got to be a more even exchange, I think. And it's really great when the light bulbs go off for the grownups, because then, I don't know, there's just more honesty in every interaction. And yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate the work that you do. And thank you for taking the time to be here today. We have a number of wonderful resources in the chat. And, I encourage folks who are listening to reach out to Haven or the New Hampshire Coalition to find your local organization and some of the resources that are on are also listed for your own personal growth. And as you said, Michelle, listening, open, just being there and being okay, talking to anyone in our lives, and not thinking that we have all the answers, right? And it's really about being open and available.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can all grow. And my daughter the other day said, "Mom, I don't like the way you're speaking to me." And I was like,
right.
"Yeah, I'm being really disrespectful. You're absolutely right. I am in a bad mood."
You're right. Thank you. And then being able to apologize and move on.
Yeah, and it's okay. Again, another thing that I don't think many of us grew up with. I love my mom is a wonderful, so I hope she's not listening. But like that that ability to go in and say, I don't have to be the perfect adult. I make mistakes too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then if they tell you about the small stuff and you make them feel safe, then they're going to tell you about the big stuff.
Totally.
And I really have found as a parent, my kids are older, 23 and 19. They tell me stuff, and it's really wonderful. Just because I wasn't afraid to say stuff and also to learn from them. And I said it this week. I think that they're smarter than me. They're brighter now because look at how much access they have to knowledge. It's more than I had. So it's got to be an exchange.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining, and have a happy Friday and a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.